Chapter 1. Auction of Shadows. The auction hall stank of ozone and burnt oil, a cavern of steel and shadow carved into the belly of the space station. Flickering plasma lamps buzzed overhead, casting harsh light across the stage where lives were sold like worn-out machinery. The crowd pressed close. Merchants in jeweled robes, mercenaries reeking of stimulants, and wide-eyed scavengers who bartered with scraps of currency. Their voices rose in cruel amusement as another lot was dragged forward. She stumbled beneath the pull of the chain clamped to her wrists. Thin, malnourished, her scales dulled to a muted gray-green. She looked less like a warrior of her people and more like discarded cargo. The auctioneer, a three-eyed bracken with a voice like a rusted saw, sneered down at her. "Worthless," he spat, letting the word echo through the hall. "No strength, no obedience, no value. Starting bid, 0 credits. 0 who waste their time." The crowd howled with laughter. Coins clattered onto the floor just for sport. Someone shouted, "She's barely worth the air she breathes." Another jeered, "Leave her for scrap. Feed her to the recyclers." The woman lifted her chin, though her knees trembled. Her eyes, slit-pupilled in gold, flicked across the mob. They glittered not with fear, but with something quieter, harder. Defiance. From the back of the hall, a voice broke the rhythm of mockery. "I'll bid." The laughter died, crushed beneath the simple weight of the words. Heads turned. A human stepped forward to the haze of incense and grease smoke, his boots striking the metal deck with steady force. He wasn't richly dressed, just worn space of leathers, scarred at the seams, a faint patch of old bloodstains at the cuff. His face was weathered, lined not by age but by years lived on the knife's edge of survival. Captain Elias Kane. The bracken's 3 eyes blinked in irritation. "A bid? On this? Name your price, human." Kane's gaze didn't leave the woman. He saw the stiffness in her spine, the way she refused to bow even as chains bit her wrists. It stirred something familiar, something he'd seen in soldiers left to die on forgotten battlefields, in children starving on ruined colonies. The stubborn spark that refused to go out. 1 credit. Kane said flatly. The hall erupted again, but the laughter carried a nervous edge this time. Humans were rare here, strangers in the trade pits, stubborn in ways no alien quite understood. The auctioneer bared sharp teeth. 1 credit accepted. Sold, if only to clear the stage. He shoved her forward, chains clattering, as if eager to rid himself of the burden. She stumbled into Kane's reach, glaring at him as though daring him to reveal his cruelty. But instead of yanking her leash or mocking her, he unlatched the restraints with a simple flick of a tool, letting the metal fall with a ringing note onto the deck. The silence that followed was heavier than the laughter had been. "Come," Kane said, his voice low but steady. "You're free enough to walk on your own." For the first time that night, her golden eyes flickered, not with defiance, but with confusion. And in the midst of shadows and mockery, a fragile story began. Chapter 2. A cage within metal walls. The horizon's edge drifted free of the trade station, like a tired bird pulling itself into flight. Its hull bore the scars of too many close calls. Plasma burns mismatched plating, one engine coughing faintly against the void. Inside, the ship hummed with the pulse of its old drives, a constant thrum that settled into bones of anyone who walked her corridors. The alien woman sat rigid in the co-pilot's chair, her wrists still red from the auction chains. She hadn't spoken a word since Kane freed her, only kept her eyes on the starline stretching beyond the cockpit glass. Every flicker of light across the void made her tense, as if expecting the universe to punish her for this strange reprieve. Kane leaned back in his seat, boots planted wide, hands loose on the worn controls. The ship bucked slightly as the jump drive spun up, and he glanced at her. First time off a leash in a while. Her head turned sharply, eyes narrowing. "You bought me," I don't mistake that for freedom. Her voice was low, rough, carrying an accent that curled around each word. Kane didn't flinch. Bought you so you wouldn't rot in that pit. He let the silence stretch, then added, Don't owe me thanks. Don't owe me anything. She studied him as though searching for the hidden cruelty, the angle of exploitation. Humans were known in whispers across the station bazaars, reckless, desperate, unpredictable. Yet his eyes held no greed, only a tired steadiness that unsettled her more than cruelty would have. The drive engaged, pulling them into the cold slipstream between stars. The view bent, streaks of light smearing into endless silver ribbons. She gripped the armrests unconsciously, claws digging faintly into the battered padding. Kane noticed. Don't worry. Old ship, but she still knows how to run. She scowled and released her grip. Where are you taking me? He shrugged, flipping a series of glowing toggles. Nowhere in particular. Got cargo to move, debts to dodge. You can stay until you figure out where you want to be dropped. The words hit harder than he realized. Stay? No one had ever offered her choice. Among her people, worth was dictated, assigned, stripped away. Freedom was a dangerous word. She rose suddenly, pacing the narrow cockpit. The metallic floor rang beneath her bare feet. She touched the wall with the tips of her claws, feeling the steady vibration of the engine. This ship, it's alive. Kane's mouth quirked into a rare smile. Closer to dying, really, but she's mine. That's enough. The phrase lingered in the recycled air. Mine. Enough. Simple, human words. Yet they carried a stubbornness she couldn't place. Her people measured value in perfection, in contribution. Humans, it seemed, clung to broken things and called them home. She looked back at him, suspicion warring with something else. You're a fool, she whispered. Kane shrugged again, eyes fixed on the streaking starlight. Maybe, but better a fool than a kind of man who leaves someone in chains. The hum of the engines filled the silence that followed, a steady heartbeat in the fragile cage of metal walls. Chapter 3. Sparks in the Dark. The orbital bazaar was a floating sprawl of light and noise, bolted to the husk of a fractured asteroid. Neon signs buzzed in a dozen languages, their glow spilling across walkways of metal mesh. The air was thick with the sense of sizzling oils, acrid plasma fuel, and alien spices that burned the nose. Kane had docked the horizon's edge on the outer ring, its hull dwarfed by gleaming trade vessels, and led his strange passenger into fray. She walked a half-step behind him, her golden eyes flicking warily from stall to stall. Alien merchants bellowed over crates of glowing fruits, crystalline weapons, and jars that pulsed faintly with bioluminescent creatures. But the woman barely looked. She kept her arms tight to her chest, shoulders tense, as if every sound were a threat. Kane caught it. Relax. No one's looking for you here. Her jaw tightened. They always look. My people do not forgive. He almost asked what crime she thought unforgivable, but the sharp edge in her voice stopped him. He let it rest. They reached a vendor hawking power cells. Kane was running his hand over a stack when the first shot cracked. A bolt of plasma scorched the wall inches from his head. The crowd scattered instantly, merchants ducking behind stalls, customers diving into alleys. Kane spun, pulling the pistol at his hip in the same motion. 3 mercenaries pushed through the chaos, hard-eyed, armored, their weapons glowing hot. Target acquired. One barked and clipped trade tongue, visor flashing red. Their eyes weren't on Kane. They were on her. Stay down. Kane snapped, pushing her behind him as another blast seared the air. He fired back, his shot catching one merc in the shoulder. The alien staggered, gravity buckling, as an anti-grav generator overloaded nearby. Suddenly the street tilted into chaos. Shards of fruit and crates spun upward as gravity thinned, then reversed. Kane and the woman lifted from the deck, the bazaar erupting into a zero-G melee. The mercenaries adjusted quickly, their boots locking to the deck with magnetic clamps. Kane cursed, twisting in midair, firing bursts to keep them pinned. Then he saw her move. She grabbed a shattered panel, claws working furiously over the sparking circuitry. Symbols Kane couldn't read lit up in her hands. Strange fractal patterns. An energy lattice unfolded in the air, shimmering like a spider's web of light. "What the hell?" Kane started, but then the nearest merc's rifle shorted, sparks showering his visor. He tore at it, choking. She didn't stop. Her hands moved with precision, weaving invisible threads through the broken generator. The gravity field snapped back, slamming everyone to the deck hard. Kane gritted his teeth against the impact, rolling to one knee, pistol up, 2 mercs down. The third hesitated, weapon half raised, then cursed and retreated into the smoke. The bazaar slowly stirred back to life, whispers rising as the mercenaries fled. Kane stood, chest heaving, his pistol still warm. He looked at her, standing straight despite her cuts, the faint glow of alien code fading from her fingertips. "You said you were worthless," Kane said quietly. Her golden eyes locked on his, filled with a storm of anger, pride, and fear. "That's what they told me," she whispered. And for the first time, he realized her people hadn't cast her aside because she was useless. They'd done it because she was dangerous. Kane caught it. "Relax. No one's looking for you here." Her jaw tightened. "They always look. My people do not forgive." He almost asked what crime she thought unforgivable, but the sharp edge in her voice stopped him. He let it rest. They reached a vendor hawking power cells. Kane was running his hand over a stack when the first shot cracked. A bolt of plasma scorched the wall inches from his head. The crowd scattered instantly, merchants ducking behind stalls, customers diving into alleys. Kane spun, pulling the pistol at his hip in the same motion. 3 mercenaries pushed through the chaos, hard-eyed, armored, their weapons glowing hot. Target acquired. One barked and clipped trade tongue, visor flashing red. Their eyes weren't on Kane. They were on her. "Stay down." Kane snapped, pushing her behind him as another blast seared the air. He fired back, his shot catching one merc in the shoulder. The alien staggered, gravity buckling, as an anti-grav generator overloaded nearby. Suddenly the street tilted into chaos. Shards of fruit and crates spun upward as gravity thinned, then reversed. Kane and the woman lifted from the deck, the bazaar erupting into a zero-G melee. The mercenaries adjusted quickly, their boots locking to the deck with magnetic clamps. Kane cursed, twisting in midair, firing bursts to keep them pinned. Then he saw her move. She grabbed a shattered panel, claws working furiously over the sparking circuitry. Symbols Kane couldn't read lit up in her hands. Strange fractal patterns. An energy lattice unfolded in the air, shimmering like a spider's web of light. "What the hell?" Kane started, but then the nearest merc's rifle shorted, sparks showering his visor. He tore at it, choking. She didn't stop. Her hands moved with precision, weaving invisible threads through the broken generator. The gravity field snapped back, slamming everyone to the deck hard. Kane gritted his teeth against the impact, rolling to one knee, pistol up, 2 mercs down. The third hesitated, weapon half raised, then cursed and retreated into the smoke. The bazaar slowly stirred back to life, whispers rising as the mercenaries fled. Kane stood chest heaving, his pistol still warm. He looked at her, standing straight despite her cuts, the faint glow of alien code fading from her fingertips. "You said you were worthless," Kane said quietly. Her golden eyes locked on his, filled with a storm of anger, pride, and fear. "That's what they told me," she whispered. And for the first time he realized her people hadn't cast her aside because she was useless. They'd done it because she was dangerous. Chapter 5, The Way to Worth. Alarms wailed to the horizon's edge, their shrill pulse cutting through the thrum of the engines. Red light washed the corridors in harsh strokes, shadows jerking with every flicker. Kane vaulted into the cockpit, jaw tight as the ship's sensors painted the screen with hostile signatures. 3 ships, fast, sharp-hulled, bristling with weapons. Hunters. Sarah slid into the co-pilot's seat without hesitation, golden eyes narrowing at the readouts. "They've been tracking us since the bazaar," she hissed. "My people want me back." "Not happening," Kane growled, hands flying over controls. The edge shuddered as the first barrage hammered the shields, sparks leaping from overhead panels. "They'll tear us apart." "Not if we're faster." Kane yanked the throttle, engine screaming as the batter hauler dove into the asteroid belt ahead. Rocks the size of cities spun through the void, their jagged surfaces glittering with ice. Plasma fire lit up the field, chasing them between tumbling giants. But the mercenary ships followed, weaving with practiced precision. Another volley slammed the edge, and the shield meter dropped to half. Kane cursed under his breath. Sarah's claws darted across the console, pulling up schematics. "Your systems are inefficient, chaotic." But her eyes widened as an idea sparked. "If I reroute the lattice harmonics through your reactor core, I can amplify the shield phase long enough to..." "To what?" Kane barked, yanking the ship through a hairpin turn that pressed them both against their seats. "To survive?" Her voice was sharp, certain. She didn't wait for permission. She bolted from her chair, claws clicking against the deck, and tore open a panel near the engine bay. Wires hissed, energy crackled, the air thick with ozone. Kane glimpsed her through the doorway, her hands moving in patterns no human would recognize, weaving invisible threads of light into the guts of the ship. "Just hold them off," she shouted. "Give me 30 breaths." Kane grimaced. 30 breaths against 3 hunters was eternity, but he had no other choice. He swung the edge through a tight spin, cannons roaring. One Merc ship caught a glancing hit, its hull sparking as it tumbled, but the others closed in, spitting fire. The hull groaned. Shields buckled. Kane's vision blurred from the strain of evasive maneuvers. Then the ship sang. A hum unlike anything he'd heard before rippled through the frame, a resonance that settled into his bones. The shields flared to life, not the dull blue of human tech, but a lattice of golden light that danced like woven flame. Plasma bolts struck and scattered, deflected as if striking glass. Kane grinned, teeth bared. Beautiful. With renewed strength, he turned the edge straight into the fight. One hunter clipped an asteroid, splintering into molten shards. Another fled, engines flaring in panic. The last lingered too long and took a full broadside from Kane's cannons, breaking apart in a cascade of fire. Silence returned, broken only by the hiss of cooling systems. Kane slumped back, sweat running down his neck. He glanced toward the engine bay. Sarah emerged, smoke curling from her hands, golden eyes fierce but trembling with exhaustion. "You risked your life for this wreck," she muttered, voice hoarse. Kane managed a laugh, raw and ragged. "Wrecks can be fixed. People, too." Her gaze lingered on him, something unreadable burning in her eyes. For the first time, she didn't look away. Chapter 6, More Than a Bargain. The horizon's edge drifted in the quiet aftermath of battle, its hull scarred and scorched, but alive. The stars beyond were calm now, their light spilling across the battered cockpit in pale ribbons. Kane sat in the pilot's chair, one arm wrapped around his ribs, breathing slow through the ache. Every muscle in his body screamed with fatigue, but his eyes stayed fixed on the silent figure at the viewport. Sarah stood there, her golden eyes reflecting the scattered starlight. The faint glow of the lattice shield still shimmered in the distance, slowly unraveling like threads of fire. Her hands trembled, though she held them clasped behind her back to hide it. "They'll come again," she said softly, her voice carrying more weight than quiet. "My people do not forgive failure. They'll send others, stronger ones. If you give me to them, they'll reward you. You could have wealth, protection, safe passage anywhere in their systems." Cain leaned back, lips quirking despite the pain. "You think I dragged this ship through hell just to sell you off at a better price?" Her jaw tightened. "It is the way of the stars. Everyone trades something. Everyone bargains. Not me." Cain's voice was steady now, the exhaustion giving way to something firmer. He sat forward, meeting her gaze. "I don't care what your people call you. Worthless, dangerous, expendable, it's all the same poison. I see someone who stood her ground when the universe tried to break her. Someone who kept fighting, even when it cost her everything. That's worth more than any bribe." The hum of the engines filled the silence that followed. Sarah's throat worked as if she wanted to speak, but no words came. Instead, she turned sharply away, pressing her clawed hands against the viewport glass. For the first time since he'd met her, her shoulders shook, not in anger, but in something rawer, more fragile. Cain didn't move to touch her. He only said quietly, "You belong here if you want to, on this ship, with me." She froze. Slowly, she turned back to face him. Her golden eyes shimmered with an emotion he couldn't name, something between disbelief and the first fragile spark of hope. "You would keep me?" Her voice was almost a whisper. "Even knowing it will come for us both?" Cain's grin was tired but unshaken. "Let them come. I've been outnumbered before. Humanity's secret weapon? We don't quit." For a long moment, she simply stared at him, as if weighing impossible against the only truth she'd ever known. Then, slowly, she stepped closer. Her clawed hand hovered uncertainly, then rested against his forearm. Not a chain, not a leash, just contact. "You are a fool," she whispered again. But this time, her voice trembled not with anger, but something dangerously close to trust. Cain let out a rough laugh, leaning back in the chair. "Yeah, but I'm your fool now." Outside, the stars stretched wide and endless, no longer cold but full of promise. And in the battered heart of a ship that should have fallen long ago, two exiles, one human, one alien, had carved out a fragile, defiant belonging. Not a bargain. Something more. The horizon's edge drifted in silence, its engines low, steady heartbeat against the vastness of space. Beyond the viewport stretched a sea of alien constellations, sharp and glittering, like 1,000 watchful eyes. In the distance, a neon-lit world turned slowly, its cities glowing like embers scattered across the night. Cain stood by the controls, shoulders slumping unbroken, the light of the stars washing across his scarred face. Sarah joined him, her golden eyes reflecting both the endless sky and the faint shimmer of the shield lattice she had saved them with. No chains bound her now, only the choice to remain. "They'll keep hunting me," she said quietly. "Hunting us." Cain's mouth curved into that crooked, stubborn smile she had come to know. "Then we keep flying. That's what we do, one fight at a time." For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the ship, the faint pulse of artificial gravity beneath their feet. Then Sarah reached out, hesitant, and her clawed hand found his. "You're the only one," she whispered. "The only one who saw worth where no one else did." Cain squeezed her hand, his voice steady, almost reverent. "Sometimes it just takes one fool to change a life." The camera of the universe seemed to pull back then. The battered human hauler, scarred but defiant, cutting its path through a galaxy that called them both worthless. Yet inside its fragile walls, 2 exiles had found belonging and a future no measure could deny. And in that fragile, human stubbornness lay the promise of something greater than survival: hope.